Welcome to True Tears Stories. Please like this video and subscribe to True Tears Stories. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The voicemail came while Mara was sitting on the edge of her bathtub, still in her work clothes, staring at the shampoo bottle like it might offer some kind of answer. Her fingers trembled when she pressed play. The doctor's voice was calm, too calm, delivering words like biopsy, results, and finally, malignant. She didn't cry right away. She didn't scream or throw the phone across the bathroom tiles like in the movies. She just sat there, breathing, slowly, like she was trying to stay very still inside a moment that didn't feel real. It was breast cancer. Early stage, treatable. All the logical words were there, lined up neatly like fence posts. But none of them stopped the way her body suddenly felt like it wasn't her own. She felt like a stranger inside herself, heavy in the wrong places, empty in others. An hour passed before she could stand up. Another before she found the courage to call anyone. She called her sister. It was instinct, not love, not trust, just the wiring of old habits. They hadn't been close in years, not really. Jenna had always been the sharp one, the one with the loud voice and expensive clothes and laughter that could fill a room like perfume, sweet, artificial, and impossible to ignore. Still, Mara dialed, because she didn't know what else to do. "Hello," Jenna's voice answered, too bright. I got the results," Mara said, barely above a whisper. There was a pause. "From the tests?" Mara swallowed. "It's cancer." Another pause. Then laughter. Not a big laugh, not a cackle, just a sharp, short burst like something out of her sister's mouth before she could pull it back. "You're kidding," Jenna said. "No," Mara replied. "I'm not." "Oh." A beat, then quieter. "Sorry, you always worry so much about everything. I didn't think—" She trailed off. Mara held the phone away for a second. The tiles of the bathroom seemed to grow colder. The voice on the other end faded into a muffled buzz. "You think I made this up?" she said slowly. "No, I didn't mean that. It's probably nothing, right? People survive that now. You'll be fine, right?" Jenna's voice had that defensive clip, the one Mara knew too well. It wasn't cruelty, not exactly. It was the sound Jenna made when faced with discomfort, when faced with vulnerability she didn't know how to hold. Mara let out a breath, long and slow. "I just thought I should tell you." "Right," Jenna said. "Of course." They hung up soon after. No offers to come over. No questions about appointments. Just a flat, "keep me posted," like she was updating a Facebook feed. That night, Mara didn't sleep. She lay on her side of the bed, staring at the closet door, remembering all the times she and Jenna had shared a bunk bed growing up. How Jenna had once promised to protect her from the monsters in the closet. Now, she wondered if the real monsters were the words people didn't say when it mattered most. A week passed, then two. Mara went to appointments alone. She filled out paperwork, scheduled a lumpectomy, and picked up the medical forms Jenna had never offered to help interpret, despite her business background. Then, one afternoon, a text came through. "Dinner for Mom's birthday next Saturday. You in?" Mara stared at it. Nothing else. No, "How are you feeling?" No, "Want a ride?" Just the assumption that she would show up. Smile. Sit at the table like her body wasn't betraying her one cell at a time. She typed a response, deleted it, tried again. I'll come, not sure how long I'll stay. The restaurant was one of Jenna's favorites, sleek, overpriced, dimly lit like they were all trying to hide something. Mara walked in alone, her scarf knotted carefully to hide the growing bruises from blood tests, her makeup heavier than usual to mask the way her eyes had hollowed out. She found the table. Jenna was already there, glass of wine in hand, wearing a dress that shimmered like it had something to prove. There she is, Jenna said too loudly. Their mother smiled and stood up to hug her. You look good, honey, she said, but her eyes betrayed the worry. Jenna leaned across the table, still smiling. You know, she said with a laugh, I told Mom you'd make a dramatic entrance. And here you are. Mara sat down slowly. Wasn't trying to be dramatic. Oh, come on, Jenna said, waving her hand. It's a joke. The appetizers arrived. Then drinks. Then small talk that danced carefully around Mara's diagnosis. Like it was a wine glass everyone was too scared to knock over. At one point, Jenna leaned in and said, Are you going to tell the whole table or… Mara blinked. What? I mean, if you want to do the whole big announcement thing. Mara stared at her. It's not an engagement. Right, Jenna said quickly. Sorry, just trying to lighten the mood. By dessert, Mara felt like her skin didn't fit. She stood up quietly. I'm going to head out. Their mother looked up. Already? Mara nodded. I'm tired. Jenna didn't even say goodbye. She just turned to her phone, already texting someone else. Outside, the night air was cold. Mara wrapped her coat tighter around her and walked the few blocks to her car, her legs trembling. Not from illness, but from something else. From the weight of realizing that sometimes the people you need the most are the ones who look at your pain and laugh because they don't know how to hold it. She didn't cry, but she drove home with the windows down just to feel something other than silence. The hospital waiting room was brighter than Mara remembered. Harsh, overhead light bounced off the tile floor and made everything feel colder than it should have. She adjusted her scarf, more out of habit now than necessity, and tried to steady her breath. The check-in nurse gave her a warm smile, but it didn't land. Mara had gotten good at separating kindness from comfort. They didn't always travel together. It was her final pre-op appointment. Just blood work, paperwork, and one last rundown of the surgical procedure. The nurse practitioner walked her through the details like a teacher reciting a familiar lesson. Risk factors, expected recovery, post-op medication. Mara nodded through most of it. Her body was there, but her mind drifted. She thought about Jenna. Since the dinner, they hadn't spoken. Not a text, not a call, not even a like on the social media post Mara had hesitated to make. It was a simple photo, her hand clutching a knitted chemo cap beside a cup of tea. She'd captioned it, "Starting the fight. Grateful for those walking beside me." Jenna hadn't said a word. Instead, a few distant cousins and a high school friend she hadn't seen in years had commented. One even offered to drop off soup. It was strange how sometimes the people on the edges of your life moved in while those at the center drifted out like loose threads. When the appointment ended, Mara sat in the parking lot for nearly half an hour. Her keys were in her lap, but her hands didn't move. She just stared at the windshield, rain misting across the glass, and wondered how long she'd been waiting for Jenna to become someone she wasn't capable of being. Her phone buzzed, a message from their mother. "Hey, sweetie, can you come over Friday? I found something." Mara frowned. She typed back, "Sure, what is it? I'd rather show you." Friday came, and Mara drove the familiar route to the old house. Brick and ivy, with windows that always fogged in the winter. Her mother opened the door in slippers and a cardigan, ushering her in with a gentle hug. "I didn't want to say anything until I was sure," she said, motioning Mara into the living room. On the coffee table sat an envelope, thick, sealed. Her mother tapped it once with her finger. "I found this in one of Jenna's old boxes. I think it's yours." Mara picked it up slowly. Her name was written on the front, in Jenna's handwriting. She hesitated. "You didn't read it?" Her mother shook her head. "Didn't feel like mine to open." Mara unfolded it gently, the paper soft and creased, like it had been handled too many times before being put away. The first line read, "Mara, if you're reading this, I've probably made a mess." Mara blinked. "I've been jealous of you for as long as I can remember. Not because you were louder or more successful or got more attention, but because you were kind. You made people feel seen. You listened. Even when we were kids, you could sit in a room and make it warmer. I've never known how to do that without being the loudest." Her chest tightened. "When you told me about the cancer, I laughed because I panicked. That's the truth. It sounded so unreal. I didn't want it to be real. And in that moment, I did the worst thing I could. I turned your pain into something small, something manageable. A joke. There was more. Pages, even." Mara read in silence as the clock ticked in the background. The letter was messy, honest, and full of the kind of emotion Jenna could never say out loud. She admitted to being scared, to not knowing how to show up, to feeling helpless in the face of something she couldn't fix. At the bottom, one line stood out. "If I haven't said it yet, I love you, and I'm sorry for making you feel like your pain didn't deserve space." Mara didn't cry, but she did fold the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope like it deserved safekeeping. Her mother sat beside her, silent. "She wrote this and never gave it to me." "She probably didn't know how," her mother said. Mara nodded. "I'm not sure it changes anything." "Maybe not," her mother said, "but sometimes the words we don't say still matter, especially when we finally find them." That night, Mara called Jenna. It rang 4 times before she picked up. "Mara, I got your letter." A pause. "You weren't supposed to. You wrote it." "I know, I didn't think you'd ever see it." Mara's voice was steady. "You hurt me. I know. I needed you." "I didn't know how to be what you needed," Jenna said, her voice cracked. "I didn't think I could." "I never asked you to be perfect," Mara said softly. "I just asked you to stay." There was silence. Then Jenna whispered, "Can I come with you to the surgery?" Mara closed her eyes. "Okay," she said. "Yeah, you can come." Jenna arrived at 6:12 a.m., coffee in one hand, her car keys dangling from the other, like she'd just stepped out for groceries instead of showing up for one of the hardest days in her sister's life. Mara saw her through the glass doors of the surgical center and felt her stomach tighten, not with dread exactly, but with the weight of the unspoken. Jenna looked unsure. She shifted her weight, adjusted her scarf even though it wasn't cold, and gave a small wave. Mara responded with a nod, and that was enough, for now. Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic and early morning stress. The nurses moved like clock hands, efficient and kind, but busy. Mara was already checked in and sitting in pre-op when Jenna was led back. The curtain slid open, and Jenna peeked in like a child entering a classroom after the bell. "Hey," she said. "Hey," Mara echoed, voice hoarse from nerves or from the night of half-sleep that came before. Jenna didn't sit immediately. She hovered. "Do you need anything? Water? A blanket?" "I'm okay." A long pause. Then Jenna sat at the edge of the chair by the bed, hands folded tight in her lap. Her nail polish was chipped, a red so deep it almost looked black under the fluorescent lights. "I read your letter again," Mara said softly. "This morning, before we left?" Jenna's throat worked, but she didn't speak. "It helped," Mara added. Another silence followed, but this one wasn't hostile, just cautious. "You always made things feel big," Jenna finally said, her voice low. "Not in a bad way, just important, like they mattered." Mara glanced at her. "They do matter. I know, I think I've spent a lot of years pretending they didn't, because I didn't know how to hold anything that big." Mara reached out, placing her hand over Jenna's. "You're here now." The curtain swished, and a nurse stepped in, clipboard in hand, all business and brisk warmth. "Time to go over a few things." They ran through the list again. Mara's name, date of birth, allergies, what procedure she was having, and why. The nurse smiled when Jenna answered one of the questions before Mara could. "Looks like you've got a good support team." Jenna gave a soft laugh. "Trying." As they wheeled Mara toward the OR, Jenna walked beside the gurney. Her fingers brushed Mara's wrist as they stopped just outside the double doors. "Wait," she said, rummaging in her bag. "I brought something." She pulled out a small envelope, sealed with a sticker shaped like a sunflower. "Open it after," she said. "Not now. It's not perfect, but it's honest." Mara nodded, throat too tight for thanks. The surgery was long, uneventful, the doctors would later say. A clean removal, with good margins. Nothing unexpected. But time moved differently for Jenna in the waiting room. It slowed, stretched, spun around her like a fog she couldn't walk out of. She paced, drank 3 coffees, answered 1 call from their mother, ignored 5 others. When the surgeon finally emerged with good news, Jenna cried, not from relief alone, but from something older. Something that had been living under her ribs since the night she laughed at her sister's diagnosis and saw the hurt ripple through a room like dropped glass. She sat at Mara's bedside that evening, long after visiting hours technically ended. The nurse gave her a pass, something about being family. Mara was groggy, but awake. The light in the room was dim, shadows curling in the corners. Machines beeped in rhythm. It was the kind of night that would fade in memory, except for the feeling it left behind. "I opened it," Mara whispered. Jenna looked over. "The envelope?" Mara nodded. "It was a drawing." Jenna flushed. "It was dumb. I just thought, you used to draw me pictures when I was scared, remember? In middle school?" Mara smiled. "You drew us both, holding hands, standing on a big heart like it was a stage." "It's cheesy," Jenna said, embarrassed. "It's beautiful." They sat quietly for a moment, the air between them no longer full of avoidance, but something tentative and real. "I don't know how to do this perfectly," Jenna said. Mara closed her eyes, but the smile remained. You don't have to. Outside, the city moved on, unaware. But inside that hospital room, something was healing that had nothing to do with surgery. Sisters, once fractured, learning to find each other again in the space between apology and presence. The follow-up appointments came fast after that. One, every week at first, then bi-weekly, then monthly. Blood work, imaging, that faint tang of hand sanitizer that seemed to follow Mara like a ghost. The stitches healed. Her energy returned in uneven waves, strong one day, hollowed out the next. But through it all, Jenna was there. Not perfectly, not always without awkwardness, but she came. She drove Mara to infusion days, brought her thermos coffee, and remembered which snack she could eat without nausea. They played card games in the waiting room and sometimes didn't speak at all. And it turned out that was enough. One afternoon, as autumn began to burn the leaves into color, Mara sat in her living room with the blinds half closed and the letter Jenna had written in her lap. Not the sunflower one from surgery, a new one. One she'd found in her mailbox that morning, tucked between a grocery flyer and an insurance bill. She hadn't opened it right away. It felt heavier than it was. Jenna's handwriting on the envelope was steadier than Mara remembered from their childhood notes. Less rushed, more sure of itself. She opened it carefully, the same way she handled her medical reports now, expecting weight, bracing for it. Inside was a single sheet. No dramatic monologue, no poetic confession. Just this. I didn't understand your fear until I thought I might lose you. And I'm sorry it took me that long. I used to think strength meant silence. Now I think it means saying, I love you, and I was wrong. Mara pressed the letter to her chest and leaned back against the couch. The room was quiet, except for the rustle of leaves outside. There was no music, no movie on, but she didn't feel alone. Later that week, she and Jenna met at their father's old favorite diner, the kind with red booths and laminated menus that hadn't changed in decades. They sat in a corner booth, ordered pancakes for dinner, and pretended it was normal. Halfway through their meal, Mara asked, "Do you ever think about getting tested?" Jenna's fork paused mid-air. "You mean for Burkia?" "Yeah." A long breath. "I've thought about it. I'm scared to." "I was too," Mara said, "but knowing helped me make decisions. It helped me catch it early." Jenna nodded, eyes flicking toward the window. "Okay. Okay, what?" "I'll do it." And she did. The results came back 2 weeks later. Positive. Jenna sat on Mara's porch the evening she found out, the paper in her hand trembling like a leaf in the wind. She didn't speak right away. Mara didn't press. Finally, Jenna said, "I think I always thought I was invincible." "We all do," Mara murmured. "I made fun of you," Jenna said. "When you told me, I thought you were exaggerating or being dramatic. But now," she didn't finish the sentence. "You're not broken," Mara said gently. "You're informed. That's a gift." Jenna laughed bitterly. "Some gift. It means you get a choice. It means you get to prepare." Jenna wiped at her face. "I don't want to be afraid every day." "You won't be," Mara said. "Not forever." They sat in the soft dark for a while, the porch light humming above them, the autumn air cooling their skin. "You saved my life," Jenna said suddenly. Mara blinked. "What?" You being honest, you going through this, it scared me into listening. That test, it would have never crossed my mind if you hadn't lived it out loud. Mara looked at her sister then, not the version she'd built in her mind, not the cruel echo of one terrible laugh, but the whole person. Fearful, brave, imperfect, trying. You're allowed to change, she said. Jenna gave a teary smile. Took me long enough? Mara nodded. It's not about when, just that you do. By spring, Jenna had made decisions. Preventative surgery, new doctors, support groups. She invited Mara to the first appointment, which she accepted, holding Jenna's hand in the waiting room like a mirror of the one she had sat in months earlier. They weren't the same sisters anymore. They were something closer. The day Jenna got her first all-clear post-op, she brought Mara a tiny ceramic trinket box shaped like a heart. I saw it and thought of you, she said, almost shyly. Mara opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper. You and your letters, she said, smiling. Jenna laughed. It's a habit now. Mara unfolded it carefully. Thank you for letting me come back, for letting me try again. I didn't know how to show up for you at first, but I promise now I won't leave. Mara closed the lid. Then we're good, she said. And they were. Not perfect, not immune to future conflict, but whole enough to heal, strong enough to stay. Some endings don't come with clean bows or grand speeches. They arrive like quiet apologies and new habits. Like sitting on a porch with someone who once hurt you, realizing they stayed long enough to matter again. Mara didn't forget that laugh. It still surfaced sometimes, uninvited and sharp, but it didn't own the story anymore. It had become just one note in a longer, fuller song. She kept the heart-shaped box on her dresser, next to the pill organizer and the framed photo of her and Jenna from a beach trip they took at 17. They'd gone with matching sunglasses and too much sunscreen, believing back then that nothing truly bad could ever happen. The photo was cracked in one corner now, but their smiles were real. The letters, all of them, were tucked in a drawer, not hidden, not displayed, just held. Proof of what they had moved through. Jenna called more often now, sometimes with news, sometimes just to ask about dinner ideas or to vent about work. Mara listened, advised, teased. She didn't keep count of who called first anymore. When their mother got sick, something small, something treatable, they took turns driving her to appointments, sat side by side in the waiting room. Sometimes read magazines in silence. Sometimes made each other laugh in that breathless, familiar way. It wasn't redemption in the cinematic sense. It wasn't dramatic transformation or sweeping forgiveness. It was something smaller, steadier. It was a relationship rebuilt not from scratch, but from the truth. Because in the end, love doesn't always look like perfection. Sometimes it looks like this: showing up when it's hardest, listening when it's messy, and deciding again and again that people can be more than the worst thing they've done. And sometimes that decision is what saves everyone.